let's have a look at how we might respond to sources in an exam context. It's really important we do this because a lot of the criteria emphasizes how you use sources. Criteria 2, to get an A or a B, you need to speak about the origin, the purpose, and the point of view that comes through a source, and we'll have a look how you might do that in this video. The difference between an A and a B is the use of adjective, whether a source and the work you've done is discerning or informed in your interpretations you make. So, to get an A or a B, when you're talking about sources, make a point of exploring the origin of the source, where it came from, the reasons that source was created, if you can determine that, what it's trying to achieve, its purpose, or its perspective, the point of view that an artist, a writer, has brought with it, as I straighten my collar. Okay, what point of view is coming through in the sources? Also, in your responses, try to include a sequence of events. This happened before, this happened after. Before this, after this, during this, a sequence in a chronological framework. Make sure you use historical terms and concepts. Make sure you're checking your spelling, your grammar, and your punctuation, GPS. Use an extensive vocab as much as you can. Use it appropriately. Don't just put in random words. Make sure you're exploring these ideas carefully and in a well-worded way. And make sure you draw upon what the key events are, what the key actions of different individuals and groups are. So, lastly, think about how you're looking at what's changed in a society wherever you can, and what remains the same, the change and the continuity. So an A and a B standard both require you to have detail in the way that you sequence your events, making sure you're accurate, what comes first, what happens next, what's going on at the same time, the sequence of events. Make sure you use terms and concepts correctly, that's where study comes in. Build up arguments based upon the evidence, so the evidence you're using makes a point. Make sure that you're trying to explain events, explain the actions of different individuals and groups wherever you can. Drawing upon that criteria, show off that you can do it. Answer the question, but look for opportunities to show these elements. Always make sure that you use your spelling, grammar, and punctuation appropriately. Write in third person. Historians write in third person. It's part of our genre. Use an objective voice. You're not trying to sell us here. You're just trying to use the logic of your argument. So it's closer to a scientific writing, a legal writing. You're stepping us through your logic. You're not trying to convince us or talk us into things. Usually you're going to be writing in past tense, and make sure you're writing in the past tense throughout any writing you do in the exams. Be succinct and to the point. Sometimes shorten your sentence length. Don't have everything big, long, run-on sentences. Nice, tight, short, and to the point sentences. Proofread carefully. Make the edits you need to do, and that means manage your time in the exam carefully. So let's have a look at this practice task I gave you. In the task, I put to you how you might consider the context, the origin, the purpose, the perspectives of this source. When I go through it, let's think about the process I've been teaching you to use. When you're beginning to analyse the source, straight away, look towards the caption. Find out what the caption is, identify it, highlight it, circle it. Look for any background information that might have been given to you with the source. It often contains clues. The date and the caption between them can give you a lot of really good clues. Wherever possible, look for the nature of the author, who the author or creator of the source is. There's nothing on this source. We have very little at all, other than they were around in 1791 and they were publishing and writing in French. So it's fair to guess that they're French and they lived during the French Revolution. But that's all we've got. The clue comes from the language there. So have a look at a little bit of a think about what we're trying to discover here. We're trying to identify the context. What are the historical events, trends, personalities in place at the time? What's happening at the time of this? When someone creates a source, what are they hoping to achieve by that? What is the source's purpose? Why would someone have drawn this source in this way? what perspectives come through, what biases, what tendencies, what attitudes are being conveyed. What is it that is being revealed by this source about the author's attitude to the events? And what are the origins of it? A little bit like looking for the author and the date, giving you some senses who's creating it and why. So let's have a quick look at it. As I look at this cartoon, A Family of Pigs Brought Back to the Sty, I'm drawn to the date, June 25th, 1791, and I know on June 20th, in that night time there, the King and the Queen have attempted to escape to Varennes, the flight to Varennes. They've then been captured and they're brought back in humiliation to Paris at the Tuileries Palace. So that's probably what's going on here. That's my context. I've got a few events there that I could talk about, and this seems to match. I can see Louis here, who appears to be the Queen, and the rest of the royal family and their entourage here being depicted as pigs, being brought back to the sty. What's the sty? Their palace that they held hostage in, called the Tuileries in Paris. Okay, so that's making some sense to me then. The purpose of the cartoon seems to be quite hostile to the king. I guess there's some sense of humiliation involved here. Perspective would be an artist in favour of the revolution. Where is it originating? I would assume it's a Parisian artist during the revolution. So take a moment now to pause and have a look at my response that I've written here. I've written in third person, past tense, and so on. I've identified the origins, the date, and that it's French. I've given some information as to the context, what events are happening around the time this is drawn. I've identified the cartoonist's perspective. I've even used the word perspective. And I've used evidence as how that perspective comes through. And where I can, I talk about the purpose of the cartoon being created. And this is the kind of work you're looking to try and write in an exam.